It's been a while since the last PvPTIME, actually. And here we are, we're back again because there's some very exciting things happening. And I think a big prompter in this actually is CMC, in fact, being the new leader of the skills team. Obviously, CMC is very widely known to be a bit of a PvP fan, PvP enjoyer.
I think that's what 2v2 and 3v3 needs, an end game per se. So, you know, for example, if unranked is 2s and 3s, ranked is conquest, the ranked season ends, then it switches, right? So conquest becomes unranked and 2v2 becomes ranked like it is currently. And at the end of that, when the ranked season is about to start again, you have a 2v2/3v3 tourney to basically give people a reason to play ranked when it is 2v2 and 3v3. Unranked is just, it's a plague. It's horrible. There's no MMR. The matchmaking is horrible. People can literally 5-stack, and if you're solo queuing, you just don't have fun.
And I kind of wish I was wrong, because I think Conquest is good, but my feeling is that if players could pick between Conquest and not Conquest, I think Conquest would die.
Boom.
Well,
Here we are. Yeah, we're in. We are live. It's TeaTime. Are there any PvP fans in the chat? Okay, we're going to be speaking to an audience of one today, all the PvP fans.
One PvP fan.
Yeah, one PvP fan in the back of the room right there.
Need him to X-Hub more than Ev.
Yeah. But anyway, it's been a while since the last PvPTIME, actually. And here we are, we're back again because there's some very exciting things happening. And I think a big prompter in this actually is CMC, in fact, being the new leader of the skills team. And obviously, CMC is very widely known to be a bit of a PvP fan, PvP enjoyer. And I think the first topic I want to leap into kind of is this patch and kind of the decision-making process, but, you know, behind a lot of the changes that have been made. Like, for, you know, a bit of a summary here, we've got Distortion back on Mesmer Elite specializations. Spectre is getting absolutely annihilated, like the sustain more or less cut in half, right, in the next patch. We have Blade Sworn getting hacked away at by, you know, nerfing its, like, most powerful ability, right? Like, loads of powerful abilities, although there's a bit of a meme with that build, apparently, with the new defense trait line, but, well, you know, we'll see how that one pans out. We'll have to see if it ends up being just as disgusting. But a lot of very dynamic changes, and that's kind of like the first topic when it comes to the balancing. Like, balance patches are essentially the content for PvP, right? That's what changes the game and makes it exciting, right? You can add a new map, you can change the balance, right? You can add more rewards, but balance is the core of what PvP is. And to me, this patch is a big switch up. I think historically we've seen kind of shaving, right? Like just very carefully picking away at things. But this is more of an aggressive approach here. I think it was very much intended just to kind of cut the top builds out and replace them with something else to an extent, as opposed to just, you know, kind of like, okay, right, well, we're going to have a Scourge meta, and then we're going to have another Scourge meta, but a slightly worse version of Scourge, and then just keep going until eventually Scourge dies. That happened a few times. Maybe wasn't that much fun to deal with there. You know, I remember the good old days, Skyhammer, 3 Scourges, right? Very good. 3 Mender's Scourge, actually. That's a lot of fun. We love to see that. But anyway, just to kind of open this up there, what do you guys think about this type of approach to balancing the game and this way of going about things? Like a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more aimed at shaking things up quickly and trying to guarantee that things actually change to reduce how stale the metagame feels. Because we actually saw that in World vs. World 2 with the way Scrapper was approached. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think this patch was honestly one of the best patches I've seen in a very long time, mainly because it wasn't more so about buffing and nerfing rather than just bringing back specs that were essentially plagued with artificial trade-offs, you know, Soul Beast not being able to pet swap, Chrono losing Distort, Berserker losing F1, getting extra toughness. I think changes like that were really, really big because these classes are no longer a meme. They're going to be good even if they're not necessarily meta, which is, you know, classes like Reaper, Dragon Hunter that aren't actually meta right now are still good because they didn't get said trade-offs added to them. So I do think this is a really, really good direction. I think the only thing missing from this patch, in my opinion, was probably just fixing Mirage, giving it its second dodge back, and we would have been good to go.
I mean, I just think in general, like having a big switch up is really healthy because you don't want the game to become stale. Not only top players, they can play the same build forever and kind of enjoy it. They're doing their thing. They like the build they're playing. They like the combat around it. They're willing to keep playing with it. But we want to continuously make sure that everyone is excited about PvP. And there's so many other things that happen when there's a patch. Like when there's a patch, immediately people can make builds and all sorts of things, and they can make content around that. Okay, well, here you go. This is the new Mesmer build you can play in this metagame, and people want to watch that. People get engaged. They want to try it in ranked, and you just get an influx of excitement in the game. That's the first great thing about this patch. I also like the level of foresight that we've seen added from ArenaNet. They buffed Mesmer. They knew that I could easily dominate this entire game, so they put me in jail. That's why I have this cage around me right here. So even though I could easily bop the entire game, I am currently trapped. We'll see if I can fix this before patch day, but there's a lot of exciting things happening. And it's fun to see.
Thank for jailing you. Let us all win something.
No, you need it. You need it. Like another 6 years, and maybe we'll cut off to half of my achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's going to be a really, really exciting time for PvP. Obviously, right now, there's been a bit of stuff going on with Spectre. Sometimes you have 2 Spectres, sometimes you have 3 Spectres, sometimes you have a Deadeye in there as well. Double Blade Swarm was very popular this time as well. So definitely some very targeted changes to shake things up, and honestly, bringing back some old favorites too. Right? I think one of funnily enough, is the one I actually missed in my little introduction spiel there as well. But Berserker is coming back as well, which is that's going to be.
Oh, Berserker is going to be disgusting. I think people will hate it very quickly because it's going to be a tank, and that's going to be funny to watch. So basically, they added a trait which is basically Endure Pain on Elite, and Headbutt is an 18-second Elite. And there's several traits that in defense where you basically get Endure Pain on Elite, you get Vigor and Barrier on stance. And it's just going to happen over and over and over again. It's going to be a very, very fun interaction, I think, for people, especially with all the other defensives that have been added. I don't want to get too specific, but it's going to be pretty tanky, I think. It might be the new Catalyst, probably.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun in ranked.
That was the only change I wasn't too excited when I looked at it, because I felt a little bit overtuned. I guess it kind of depends. That's like the benefit of when you make these sweeping changes, that you're guaranteed to see changes. The only thing I would hope for is if it would turn out that there's just some bulky berserkers running around ruining matches. Maybe there's some smaller changes that can be done specifically for that class, just for that. But I guess we'll see when things come. In the end, my Mesmer should be able to beat everything regardless, right?
Yeah, I think that will be the balance state.
With the double distort.
All we do need is the distort there for sure. And yeah, I think that you're absolutely right there. You just need to make sure that there is a follow-up. And I actually think that's very likely as well. And I think this has actually been something that's kind of made balance patches seem really scary historically, especially in competitive game modes actually, but actually in the entire game, is that when a change happens, it's like, okay, this is it for 9 months, right? This is it. Like, this is going to be the meta. We're going to be playing these exact same builds for 9 months' time, maybe even longer than that, right? Depending on, where we are in the game's history. But right now, the development team is super agile when it comes to skill design, actually. And a good example of this would actually be the PvE stuff, actually. There was a really big catastrophic drama with warrior banners, kind of a key thing in the PvE meta back in June. And that was actually addressed very quickly, actually, by ArenaNet, right? A redesign of these abilities was created and then pushed to the game somewhat quickly. So that actually gives me a lot of confidence, and I think it should give the player base a lot of confidence that, let's imagine that, Berserker is super busted, right? Or, Mesmer is too strong, Helseth is 1v5ing, right? Like, it's over. The top teams are all quitting. They can't handle it anymore. If that happens, well, I think it's actually very likely that, the balance team will actually be able to respond to that pretty quickly. And over the next, within a month, a few weeks or so, have a solution. And that communication is going to be there as well, because that really happened with the PvE change as well, is that, of course, they couldn't hot fix it the next day and fix the issue, but they did communicate that, yeah, we're aware of it and we're going to fix it very, very early on. And that type of communication, I think, is really important to maintaining a well-balanced game, but also giving the community the trust trust that, oh, that really, really unfun, stupid build that I hate. Well, good news. Okay, ArenaNet might actually fix it and address it. Like, it's a really exciting time. It's weird, and this is kind of almost like the next thing I want to segue into after we kind of clean up this, talking about this patch a little bit. But it's honestly a super exciting time in terms of the actual gameplay and profession diversity, in my opinion, for PvP. Things are really looking up, in my opinion, in that regard.
Even before this patch, the gameplay itself was looking better than ever. Like in terms of the outlier builds were still fine. Like everything can die. Team fights have kills left and right, and like there is no bunker meta of sorts whatsoever. And there's even now, like if you go into ranked, you can basically climb with just about every single build. And of course, there's a top end and such, and there's certain builds, for instance, many of the Chrono, for instance, which is useless. But now you're seeing them target the builds, Berserker, like that aren't good. So like in the end, they're doing what needs to be done right now for the game to continue improving. The balance doesn't need to get better in that many ways, but it needs to be shaken up. It's really important that it's not the same gameplay over and over and over forever, because people are going to get bored of that. And that's why changes like this are great. And if you look at this patch for that perspective, then I don't see how you can't look at this and say that it's a fantastic success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're expecting this to be a fairly regular thing as well. I mean, for example, there's another patch coming up in November. It's going to be more PvE focused, but I think there'll probably be some tweaks, right? Some tweaks and changes.
Is it actually PvE focused?
I believe so. Yes. PvP. Yeah, I believe it's the October patch is competitive. So PvP and World versus World, and then the November patch is more oriented towards PvE. I believe. I think it's more of like a PvE/general update. So there will definitely be some competitive stuff thrown in there as well. But I think that's the broad focus for it. So yeah, it should be it should be pretty damn good, actually. Like there's a good road ahead, in fact, for kind of the future of PvP and development. And yeah, I actually really want to highlight what Helseth said there as well, is that the metagame right now is actually super cool. I recently ran a tournament, Master of the Arena, and there's always a bit of fear I have. Like, oh god, what if the builds are horrible? What if the games all go to time? And what if it? Oh no, right? And that does sometimes happen, obviously. But it was the opposite, actually. The games are extremely dynamic. And that's actually reflected in the monthly automated tournaments as well, and just general tournament play. It's very, very dynamic and a really exciting time to be playing PvP. Actually, like it's quite rare, or it's quite rare that the flow of the game is actually this good with the way it actually plays out. I think that the ArenaNet balance team, they've done a pretty good job with the gameplay, and now it's just a case of kind of shaking things up, keeping things fresh, and eventually growing the game mode. And eventually growing the game mode. We hope so anyway, but yeah. But yeah, there you go. See, it's a mixture of changes across the game mode. See, Grouch in the chat, giving us the insight, giving us the information. There we go.
Big.
It's not just a focus. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, bit of a general update across the board. Fantastic stuff. You love to see it. So yeah, you don't even have to wait that long from October. It's going to be another month, and around we go again. And I guess that kind of flows into the next topic here, and this almost feels like the meat of the conversation whenever PvP comes up, because I find myself a little bit confused, and I think perhaps you two might be able to give me some insight and help me out on this one. When I look at PvP, I look at an excellent game mode that's really strategic, skill-based, stays fresh. I see, honestly, good game flow, a few outliers and balance, obviously, here and there, not bad. Excellent systems, tournaments, with a special, the most prestigious reward in the game by far, not even close. With the monthlies, the dailies are every 3 hours, bunch of gold in there as well. Ranked, it's just a good ranked system. It works, right? You've got rating, you've got badges, you've got titles, all this kind of good stuff. But yet, I don't feel like PvP is doing super well. Right. I think that there's a lot of complaints about population, and I think those certainly bear out in reality. I think that PvP population is not super hot right now. Queue times are not great. Players kind of get smushed together with different ratings, right? Like high-rated players with low-rated players. So it feels very unusual to me. Why is it? Like, what's going on with PvP, or why is it that PvP isn't able to seemingly grow or get more of a foothold in the community when everything about it seems really, really good, and certainly, if not, if not good already, improving and getting a lot better. What's going on there?
I feel like I don't know, it's either the new player experience or the mechanics of the game maybe being a little too punishing when starting out. And it's kind of a snowball effect because the population is low, so you have new players coming in, going against, Helseth immediately, and they just can't do anything, and then they're on farm, and then they don't want to play PvP anymore because the population is low. But to fix that, you need these players to keep playing. I think that's the main issue. But yeah, PvP, it's like you said, the game mode, honestly, more so than any other game mode, it is very complete. I mean, we talked about this before. It has everything. Starting out unranked, into ranked, into climbing rank, trying to get titles, badges, and then going into daily AT, monthly AT. It's all there, but I don't know if it's advertising, the game's too hard, or the people just prefer, PVE or War of the World. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's definitely the main issue is the population, and it just hurts the game.
I think there are a lot of issues in terms of direction from the community, from the players, from the game, and from the new player experience. So I'm going to babble for a bit, and you can stop me when you want to. First of all, let's say I want to play PvP. All right, Naru, I'm gonna take this conversation along with you, and you can just follow me. So I want to start PvP for the very first time. Okay, what would you suggest that I should do as a new player for the very first time?
I mean, queue unranked. Start with unranked. The
Okay,
thing is,
okay,
it
okay.
depends. Yeah, go ahead.
You can't swap. Now you've decided this path. It's a
Well,
choose your own adventure. I'm
you
gonna
have.
queue
that's
unranked. I'm
yes,
gonna
you
queue
have to.
unranked.
I
The
mean,
first thing that I
yeah.
haven't
Yeah,
done
go
is I
ahead.
don't have a build. I don't have anything. I have what the preload set me up in. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna be severely understated, and I'm gonna be in a conquest mode, which is a mode which requires me to understand. At the very start of the game, I'm gonna run too close to cap it, and I'm gonna stand next to an ally who's telling me I'm an idiot because I'm not moving because it's not faster because I'm capping it with him. So like PvP, the game mode is pretty immediately daunting. Whether it's ranked or unranked, there's a lot to be taken. You have the game mode itself, of course, but you have the extra side objectives on every single map. How do you know, for instance, how the temple buffs work? Of course, you can read, but everyone doesn't do that. And basically, there's no way for the new player to go in and get a basic grasp of it. Now, if you change your thing to say before you start playing, you should get a little general overview. Look at some YouTube videos where they discuss the maps, the side objectives to that. Take a build that you know of and go for that. You can do all of those things. And when you start playing, when you've done all these side things that have been advised that you should do, you're still so far away from even understanding how the basic gameplay of the game works because you can't tell that until you actually play. And the way for that to be better is if everyone more or less knows how that works. You should incrementally learn more of the game. But the problem is that if I, as a new player, start playing, after 10 games, I might play people that have played hundreds of games.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's like I said, the population is crippling new players from entering the game mode.
but there
Because
is no
here's the
game
thing.
I
So
can play where I don't face that issue, right?
okay,
I'm
so
playing.
let me give you an example. Let me give you an example, or the difference. So you go into PVE, right? And you're a new player. All these new team players come in, and they don't know anything. But then you have all these people. You have people who are so excited to help these new players out. They are quite literally, like shooting themselves in the foot by AFKing in Queensdale, waiting for these new players to arrive, so they can immediately be like, "All right, I'm R to help you. Like let's go. I'm gonna give you gold. I'm gonna send you gear. I'm gonna do all this stuff for you." Whereas with PvP, it's different. It's just you, right? Unless you find someone to play with, which in PvP I don't think the environment is very set up for that. So it's much harder to kind of learn. And in PvP, you're all by yourself. It's not like running in a 30, 40 man Zerg where, if your Zerg is really good and you're winning, then you're having fun. You're like, oh, I'm winning poggers. And then you keep going and then you get your gear and there's some kind of progression. Then eventually you keep wanting to play. And to be honest, you don't really have to be that good. I mean, Teapot talked about this, right? he said that you could clear every single raid in this game, and your mechanics could be I don't know if his what words he used, but basically he said you could be shit and clear every raid in the game, right? But then you go into PvP and all of these things get exposed, which is fine. Like if you were playing people of your skill level, while you don't have all these people waiting in Queensville to help you, it would be fine. But the problem is you play 4 or 5 games, like you said, and you're immediately going to run into good players instantly, and it's very bad because at that point you're just going to be on farm, and no one wants to be on farm because it's just going to make them not want to play, and that's the new player experience that I'm more so talking about. It's crippled by the population.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
So my suggestion there, where you basically need more or less a barrier before you start playing the game. That's essentially what you're saying, is that before you go in and you get destroyed, don't do that. Check out the content that actually exists there to get into the game more proper. I recall a while ago, I believe it was when Summit started doing awful in Guild Wars and trying to play it. TeaTime made like a big tutorial video, right? And my idea is that you can't expect ArenaNet to reform the way Guild Wars 2 PvP works. I'm only looking at it from the perspective of, well, what can you as a community do to make the game more accessible for people? In general, I think I've always been a huge advocate for streamers and like more content being made, build guides and all that stuff. I've been competing in various different games after my time in Guild Wars, and when I wanted to become good with Shaggy, because I'm playing multiverses now, well, I look up streamers, I look up combo guides, and I play, and then I look up top matches and all that stuff, and I basically get eased into the game. I played initially just for the gameplay, and then when I hit my mental hurdles, I pick up what I can get. Right now, let's say that I want to play Mesmer in Guild Wars 2. Okay, what do I do? Well, I know what I do, but let's say that I'm a new player in this game and I want to learn Mesmer. There's effectively no entry point, right? There is streamers where they can answer questions because streamers are in general pretty good, but that's also not the first thing people look for. Like you have like the wikis and you have is that it? Like how do you actually?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big point. I think there is a really big lack in terms of kind of community resources. For Guild Wars 2 in general, I would say for all game modes, but certainly, more for the competitive game modes, for PvP and World versus World. Like more of that would definitely be useful. Like more resources on Discord, like more streams, like more YouTube videos as well. It's really important in a lot of these games, right? To have that structure that players can ease themselves into the game. To do this, for sure.
But there's no my idea is there no if a new player wants to play PvP right now, what's the actual advice you guys give them generally?
It's a good question. It's a good question, to be honest. I think, weirdly enough, I'd probably tell people to 1v1 people.
Exactly.
I think is what I would tend to lean towards. Almost not worry too much about conquest in a way. Just try to use your skills, look at what your opponent is doing, try not to die, right? Try to kill the other guys. So when someone says, "Oh, what build should I play in PvP?" I tend to recommend that people play duelists, right? So that because that means you're going to be in a situation where it's not easy to improve. Obviously, getting better at the game is always going to be difficult, but it's almost like straightforward to improve. You're going to be in this environment where you got to kill the other guy, right? You got to dodge the skills, you got to land your abilities, and those building up that type of skill is the thing that, again, Naru was referencing, right? That I think a lot of players lack in the game is just mechanics, right? What we would refer to as mechanical skill, right? Building that up means that, yeah, sure, maybe you're just randomly running around the map a little bit, okay? But you can fight stuff, you can kill things. Hell, I think a lot of PvPers kind of started out like that, right? Players who came from World versus World, did a lot of World versus World roaming. They're really great at fighting other players and taking 1v1s and taking team fights. But then once you get to PvP, you take that skill and you apply it and you learn how rotation works. You learn how the map objectives operate, all this kind of type of stuff, right? Trying to survive outnumbered. And you just have that baseline skill from actually being able to play the game, and then it translates into PvP. So yeah, I would say 1v1.
So let me just explain what you just did. You just ruined my entire setup. The whole
Oh,
point
no.
that I was building at is I was going to ask Naru. He was going to come with a stupid answer like telling people to play unranked. You were going to say something
It's
similar,
bad,
stupid,
man.
and I was going to be like, see, this is why you guys aren't as talented and smart as me. What you should have suggested, and then I was going to go into the 1v1s and basically do what you did there. So I want us all to do here is basically to not listen to what TeaPot just said. TeaPot, you're incorrect. You should not be looking at YouTube videos. What you should be doing is you should be finding people on your level. If you're new, you find someone, you find a buddy, the game is free, and you start doing 1v1s with each other. You find builds that you want to play, you can just
But
look
what
up
if they
builds
don't
and you just
exist?
spam 1v1s. If you don't have friends like you, Naru, well, in that case, you type in Heart of the Mist, and you're like, hey, does anyone want a 1v1? I'm new at the game. Is anyone new here? Let's do it. That's
People
basically
aren't
how you
really
get into the
social
game.
though. I feel like that's like basically what you're saying is get a friend XD, which seems simple, but it's actually one of those things that people, unless
Okay,
you're
okay.
kind of forced,
I love
unless you're
it.
kind of
I
forced in
love
that
it. Let's go on
situation,
then.
they don't really do it.
Yeah,
People don't even
yeah,
want duo queue in the game. They just want solo only. They don't understand that
yeah.
duo queuing and playing with someone. I agree with you actually. Like you're right.
No. I
If
read
you
that it's
find
listening. I
someone
read that it's
to
listening.
go
So
on
what
that
would you
journey
suggest
with,
then?
it makes it easier. You're absolutely right. But
Yeah.
I do think it's maybe a little bit easier said than done, unless you have someone who you're downloading the game with, and you guys are like, all right, we're gonna get into PvP, we're gonna play together. Because the reality is, in low levels, it's actually kind of no one really types. People are just playing. There's some mild toxicity, and it's just very disheartening for someone
Okay.
that's trying to improve. So, but yeah.
Okay. So let
So you're
me.
both wrong, but yeah. Go
No,
ahead.
because this is still correct. This is still within my scope of how I can fix this game. I'm gonna save this game. You're all welcome. So I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when I had long hair and I played Guild Wars 2, beautiful hair by the way. Initially, you were in a training area. Okay, you created a new character. You got into an arena, and there was a bunch of corpses on the ground where you had to rest people to learn how to rest. And there were like some golems, and there was a bunch of stuff. And you had to walk up to this little location, enter the portal, and bam, you're in Heart of the Mist. Okay, am I wrong? Did I dream of this, or is this actually a thing? This was a
Yes,
thing, right?
that was
Yeah.
a
Okay.
thing.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. So new players are spawned into an instance where they're together. Now, if you just have some way of people to connect there and start 1v1ing, you already solved the idea of finding new players, right? And making instances shouldn't be a difficult thing for ArenaNet, no?
If the game doesn't force you to do it, it's not gonna happen. It sounds okay. So, for example, uh, doing dungeons, fractals, and raids, let me be more specific. Raids, you quite literally need to get people to even do the content, right? Like you will not be able to do this content if you don't get people. And it is still years later one of the hardest things for most people to get into raids. It's not the actual encounters, maybe with the exception of like Doom CM or something, but the hardest part for most people and the thing that is deterring most new players from doing raids is that I can't find a group. I don't know how to deal with the LFG. I can't find 10 gamers who are like-minded and will play like me, right? And obviously, you could say that, well, you need 9 other players versus one homie in PvP. But again, in PvP, it doesn't even require you to need that one person, so it makes it infinitely harder to kind of uh structure it that way, right? But yeah, I mean, if everyone did that, sure, but we can't all be as charismatic as you all said. Like we can't all just pull up to a new game. All right, I got my friend, let's go. We pull, and we're the best in 2 days. We're just, not everyone's like that.
Okay,
Sometimes the game needs to force you to play with someone for it to
yeah,
happen that way,
yeah. But
especially for a
it's
large scale, right? Because what you're saying is it needs to happen in a large scale for a lot of people to get in, for the population to some extent be repaired, right? But yeah,
mhm.
it's going to be much harder to do that unless the game forces you to.
Okay, well, that's because I remember last time I was on TeaTime with, I believe it was Rom, me, Teapot. Yeah, Rom had some ideas of how you could make the game, and there were some pretty heavy in-game changes. Now, if ArenaNet, I believe ArenaNet cares about PvP still, right? Copium. I believe that they care because they're still making changes, they're still communicating, and all that stuff. Are the things I'm suggesting, which is basically new characters have to do some form of 1v1 stuff, or there's some way for people to connect to 1v1 easier. Is this beyond the pale in terms of something that could happen for the game?
I don't think so. I think it could happen. I think that there are definitely there's some potential for major changes for sure, and some stuff that could definitely happen, for sure. Yeah, I believe copium.
Copium. Okay, well, until that is fixed,
Copium
right? You
Galaxy.
put that to the side. I still recommend then just more resources from the community themselves to guide people into making the right decisions to get into the game. Because I know why I got into Guild Wars 2. I know why I got really excited about this game. It's because I dueled. It's as simple as that. Everyone that I played with on my team, people that I didn't like and all that stuff at the start, everyone still came together through duels, right? Like Drasse was a little weirdo who stalked me in 1v1 servers back in the days. And he turned out to become like one of my best friends and best players in this game, right? Because we wound up 1v1ing each other. He would never have been in the game if he was just queuing endlessly. And I feel like right now there's not even that many 1v1 arenas and such. Like I went into the game, I went to the server list, and almost all of the servers, they're just like glory farms. Like, where you just stand on the node and wait. And I'm wondering, like, if there isn't some initiatives we can do, like, immediately to make that a better. The King of the Hill Arena servers were not only fantastic content for a streamer, but they were fantastic ways for people to like practice, get better at the game, and learn more at the game, and build a profile as well.
I feel like those were for players that were already in the scene. So like even back in the day when King of the Hill was a thing, it was players who were already maybe more so established that were just trying to like improve their mechanics and get to like a team to play at a higher level. I just don't see how that works for new players. Again, I think we need to I think we need to just be real about a new player that gets into PvP. The reality is, the settings are all messed up, camera shake, they don't know how to move. Like the basics aren't there, so I don't think dueling is the appropriate thing to do initially. I think that's something that you get into once you've played a couple of games, you have a build, you kind of understand how it's played, and then you maybe get into dueling. Because before that, unless the structure is there, I mean, obviously if it's there, then that helps. But before that, how does that actually work?
I still feel like people should be 1v1ing before they're 5v5 every single time, every day. And I could bet my right arm that is a much better introduction. If there was a study, the study would say Helseth is right and nothing else, because there's no way it's not better for people to be like 1v1ing each other before they go into a 5v5 conquest game with side objectives, with 5 different builds on your team, 5 different builds on the enemy team, and you're supposed to be able to take into everything at once. There's a reason why pretty much everyone playing multiverses starts initially with 1v1, because the 2v2 is too chaotic. They don't understand what's happening. But then the majority tend to gravitate towards the 2v2 later, because you always like having a teammate, so you can't make excuses when you lose and all that stuff. So basically, and I also disagree with the idea that it was only experienced players being interested in those arenas, because if we back to the time when top players consistently used those servers, Dicer streamed roughly 16 hours a day of Guild Wars 2. What a life. And all he did was sitting in those 1v1 servers. And he got a lot of people interested in not only 1v1ing, but joining these servers and getting into the game. A lot of new players came into the game because of what Sizer did in those arenas. And I believe that a lot of people piggybacked off his concept of him being on those arenas endlessly. I did it myself, and it built a lot of good content, and a lot of people got into PvP the proper way. I think there's a clear difference between new players coming into Guild Wars 2 now and new players coming into Guild Wars 2 previously, because previously there was a community that was interested in like constantly building, and everyone basically just wanted to highlight the game because they're excited about it. Now there's all sorts of egos attached and all that stuff. It's, in my opinion, humble opinion, it's not exactly the same. There are outliers, like TeaTime spends his entire soul on this game, but in general, people aren't doing what they can to make the game better. And I genuinely believe that streamers, content creators, players have a much bigger impact than they're aware of. I certainly realized, like, if I look back at the amount of people that I've affected in this game, to the point where I can go into playing Overwatch right now and someone will recognize me from Guild Wars. And I wasn't even a big streamer, really. It's just that the amount of people you touch in this game, there's a massive population and you have plenty of ways to reach to people. People are underestimating that. And they're basically saying, well, the new player experience is RIP. Well, okay, in that case, the game is RIP. Let's go play Tetris. Like, I mean, what do you want me to do?
Okay,
Yeah,
hear me out. No cope. Oh, sorry. Go
okay.
ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna say, okay, I feel like the best middle ground that maybe could be realistic, and this might be a hot take, but remove conquest unranked and keep perma 2v2 unranked, and then transition into 5v5
Mm.
conquest ranked, which is so you do two things that way. You no longer split the 5v5 queue because there's a lot of people like this on a net. There's just actual just fucking nerds sweating unranked 24/7 during the rank season. Like why are you doing that?
Really?
You literally
That's
get
crazy.
less rewards
Yeah.
and you play against worse players. But yeah, remove conquest unranked completely. Make unranked 2v2. That way, it's basically what you guys are saying. You get in and you
Yeah.
learn how to fight
Yeah.
before you kind of have to think about, oh, I have to go to do certain objectives, I have to rotate, I have to sit on a node. You at least learn how to press your buttons to kill the two other bad men on the other team, you know? So,
I
I
kind of
mean,
like
maybe
that.
maybe they do
I
that, but
actually like
I-
that.
there's a lot of
I-
things that they
Yeah,
could do
yeah,
that
yeah,
with
yeah.
this.
potentially are, realistic, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with this because I'm going to
Yeah.
quote what Grouch said here because this is absolutely right on the nose. I'm gonna and people could read it in the chat, but I'm gonna read it out because my voice is beautiful. My 2 cents for years is that Conquest is a pretty arcane game mode. I wager that players can play it for hundreds of hours before they really understand how the game mode works, let alone the combat, even if they watch a tutorial. That said, Conquest is an amazing game mode for goers to a combat system. 2v2/3v3 would probably be a better onboarding experience since the game mode is so straightforward. By the way, Helseth is the greatest Guru 2 streamer of all time. So this is all that Grouch wrote in the chat. And all of this is fact. Ranked Givers 2, like maybe having some form of onboarding into the conquest as well before you actually get into it.
Wait,
But
Grouch literally said what I just said. That's crazy. And he's game director,
yeah,
so
he also
basically
said that I'm the
confirmed.
best streamer of all time. Don't
So,
forget about that. Yeah,
of course. I
so,
mean,
yeah.
who could deny that, right?
Yeah. No, but
yeah,
I fully agree with you, and that would make a big difference because the problem is that if you just go into this game, you're gonna get butchered because it's so many things. It's so many things to learn, and like you have to be really dedicated to get into it, or you have to really love the mechanics to get into it. That is one of the most important things why most people that got good eventually got good, because they really liked the game. Now, why did they like the game? Very simple. Either they've been playing the game in like PvE, then Wall, then they go PvP, and they've been enjoying the mechanics of the game, so they know what they're getting into, and they want to become good at PvP. Or I lost my train of thought. Where was I? How people
get in?
How people love the game, or they do duels, right? And the thing is, if you're new at the game, or if you've only been playing the plebiest of PvEs, where you don't learn how the game actually works. So, for instance, if you've just been milking cows in Heart of the Mist or whatever, then when you go into the game, you don't actually love the combat yet. You haven't learned what makes Guild Wars so great, which is the actual combat. And for you to learn that, you need to actually be engaged with the game. And Conquest is not that tutorial. Conquest is way too hard.
There. Because the thing you find most in these early low tier Conquest games is people just AFKing on nodes. They put too much emphasis on I must cap this node because this node will tick and I will win, which actually works in low tier games. But people come to my stream all the time and I preach this religiously. I'm just like all the time. The nodes don't mean shit because even if you win more early on, if all you do is go out and just rush people and fight them over and over and over again, even if you lose more, you're going to scale faster than the people you're playing alongside. You're going to get better than them. Also, side note, I just want to say if if Grouch actually removes unranked and makes it a 2v2 queue, it's gonna be so funny. All the unranked sweaters are gonna blame me for it. It's gonna be glorious. So get fucked if you're an unranked main. But yeah.
Well, I mean, there's still the hot join servers that currently don't serve a purpose whatsoever, right? So I mean, maybe people can practice unranked there without any stress of the ladder and all that stuff, because the servers have basically become more or less useless. They're private dueling arenas, or they're glory farm servers, and that's about it.
And I think the hot join stuff, I think, would you say that was kind of an important part of, in a way, the social side of PvP at the start of the game? Because I was talking, it's funny, it's so weird this comes up. I was talking to Frostball about this the other day, actually, and he was telling me, like, man, like, that was the shit, right? When I was getting into Guild Wars 2, like, I was all about the hot join, right? That's how I got into PvP and how I got into that stuff was by joining the hot join servers. So I think they probably have to change. They probably have to change the way the reward structure works, because at the end of the day, things have moved on a little bit since hot join. Like unranked and ranked PvP, they've really juiced up the rewards. So it'll probably need a little bit of a rework, a little bit of a rejiggle about the place. Could be very interesting there. Yeah, I think this honestly sounds. Yeah, we've saved PvP. That's it. We can just.
I think remove dailies from hot join completely. If someone
really?
wants to get if you want to get your quick, because here's the thing, right? You want to get new players into the game, and the reality is this, right? Like PvP is not going to bite you. It doesn't matter if you're bad. It doesn't matter if there's some sweaty nerd like myself or Helseth yelling at you because you suck. It doesn't matter. Just block us and move on, right? But if you're forced to play one game a day because you want your quick dailies, eventually that one day turns to a week, turns to a month, and then you might queue one game of 2v2 and unranked, or one game of ranked conquest, and then you're like, oh, I played that really well, I feel good, I might play another one, right? And then you keep going. But the problem with hot join dailies is and it's crazy, it's actually, there's a lot of people who do this. They go to hot join servers and they just trade getting their dailies. Like it's very troll. Like,
yeah, it's a bit weird.
That should not be a thing. Just if you want to get the quick PvP dailies, play a quick game. It's not going to bite you. You're not going to die IRL. Nothing's going to happen to you. Just play, right? And I think that would actually help as well. It's just little things like that
making 2v2 unranked would actually really help with that, because it will be really quick. The 2v2 games are faster than Conquest, exactly. Right? And the queue times will be faster. The games will be faster. So there'd still be like a good way to get some quick cheeky dailies done if that's the kind of thing that you're into with PvP. But yeah. There you go. Job done. So we've solved it. And something that Grouch brought up here. I think this comes up a lot actually. And I'd be curious. What I think I kind of know what the answer is going to be here. But like, what happens if we actually just say, you know what, Conquest, no thanks. Let's go play some deathmatch. Personally, I don't think that will be a very good idea at all, because I think 2v2 and 3v3 has the potential to get staler. I think you'd have to really change the way the game plays, like with a lot of the class balance and the way a lot of classes operate, in order to make the game 2v2 and 3v3, which I guess is possible. But personally, I really like Conquest. Okay, and maybe maybe I'm saying that I'm biased, because I've played a lot of Conquest and so on. But I think it would really reduce the strategic depth of the game and just make Guild Wars 2 PvP a lot less interesting and a lot less special and defined compared to other PvP and other MMOs, for example. I think a really good way to make 2v2 and 3v3 relevant, funnily enough, would be to have unranked as a 2v2 or 3v3, but also just introduce a lot of tournaments, right, for 2v2 and 3v3. Like maybe have like every month have a big 2v2 or 3v3 automated tournament, similar to the 5v5 one, or have like a bi-weekly one. So every 2 weeks you have a 2v2, then 2 weeks after that you have a 3v3 one. So I think there are ways to make a kind of fighting tournaments and deathmatch style events really exciting, but I don't think removing Conquest is the way to go.
Let me ask you a question, Teapot, because I thought about it. My initial reaction to it is like, well, Guild Wars 2 Conquest is a beautiful thing. People that have gone to appreciate it really know how fantastic it is for the game. The movement you can do it and all that stuff. But let's change the question a little bit. Let's say you have a pool of 100,000 players. We don't have 100,000 players in PvP now, Saj, but let's pretend we do. Now, let's pretend that in one universe, it's 2v2/3v3 competitive mode. And in the other universe, you have the current system. Which do you think lends to more players staying?
2v2, 3v3. I mean,
that's what I thought too, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that's what Grouch is saying. Like, I'm biased, and like you said, if you play Conquest at a high level and you really appreciate it, because it raises the skill ceiling
immensely.
So high, but that actually hurts the game, because if there's no players that can be like, oh, I'm not going to do the AT because 55 is going to win or USA is going to win all the time, I don't care, I'm just going to play ranked and have fun. What you do, and my answer is obviously I prefer Conquest because I'm biased, but if I'm trying to be objective, 2v2 and 3v3 would actually, outside of the fact that people are used to Conquest, it would probably be better for PvP if it was the main game mode, because you do several things with that. One, it requires less players per team, so there's more teams. Yeah. That immediately is a good thing. Two, it requires the ceiling drops down a little bit. You don't have to worry about rotations and mechanics, and or sorry, not mechanics, rotations and strategy and all these things and like 5v5 team play. You just have to focus. You just have to kill people. That's all you have to do, and it makes it much easier. So then you can have a lot of new players who will try it out. They'll be like, okay, maybe I can't beat 5 out of 5, 55 or USA, but if it's a 2v2 or a 3v3, I can run a cheese comp and beat them, or I could practice a lot and do 2v2, 3v3 scrims and beat them. And it does happen, by the way. Comp is very, and balance would have to change obviously, but comp is very important in 2v2 and 3v3. And you do see players who have good mechanics but maybe lack experience in team play do good into the top teams in those.
Let's continue this train of thought, because I'm sorry, but let's say we can agree that Conquest is really fun for the top end. I agree with this, and it's also a good game mode in general. They've polished it for years. It's good, right? But that's generally for the top end. When I look at how most people are engaging with Guerrillas 2 PvP, it's essentially just a 2v2/3 mode anyway, right? Like this whole +1 idea, bunkering and node, decapping and all that stuff, that's generally just for the top end anyway. Which makes me wonder, Gratch wrote a comment, unranked 2v2, 3v3, and ranked 2v2, 3v3 80s for Conquest. I mean, you have Conquest as its set mode, where you could just have 80s for it. But let us say that, and this is just a ridiculous idea, I guess, but it's very easily implemented. If 2v2, 3v3 is the main mode starting now, but you still have the ability to play Conquest, right? Like you could throw up let's say there's daily ATs, and every other tournament, one is a Conquest, one is not. And the big question is, if you actually put players to have both options, my feeling, and I kind of wish I was wrong because I think Conquest is good, but my feeling is that if players could pick between Conquest and not Conquest, I think Conquest would die.
Oh, I think that's definitely true. I think it's
maybe
definitely
not
true.
right now. Really? I feel like
yeah. Well,
no, I disagree because think of it
in the
this
current
way.
meta, maybe not because I was just thinking.
But very important when you say current meta. I'm speaking for the future of Guerrillas 2. So we have a pool of 100,000 players potentially in the game. Now, are you saying that the current fringe of people playing Guerrillas 2 more people of the current fringe will leave because of a 2v2 split?
What I mean, sorry, let me be a bit more precise here. What happens right now in a lot of the off seasons, right, like the 2v2 and 3v3 off seasons, is that it's very active at the start, but then kind of the comp emerges, right? The comp that beats the other comps kind of pops up, the cheese, right? And then it drops off hard. Now, don't get me wrong. I think 2v2 and 3v3, it's a bit of fun. I'll blast a few games in the off season. Why the hell not? Let's go. I think it's a very good system that ArenaNet have added to the game, but it dries up fast, right? Very quickly. And this to me is like the big advantage of Conquest, is that it is inherently a bit more dynamic. It is inherently it has a bit more longevity to it because it is such a complicated game mode. I am inclined to say that, like all things equal, assuming that balance was really good in 2v2 and balance was really good in Conquest, let's just imagine that we have these two game modes. They're both pretty well balanced. They're both fun to play. People are probably going to go to the deathmatch mode simply because it's probably, there's a lower barrier to entry. The games are faster, more quick fire. Queue times are going to be faster. There's going to be, you need less players to make a team and maybe even get a little bit competitive. So in general, people are going to go towards the deathmatch mode, in my opinion, generally. However,
keep in mind that the current 2v2 3v3 mode is not. It's basically just a shoe-in during off season, right? Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. I understand. I understand what you mean there. So yeah, obviously there's some people kind of finish their rewards, right? You get the reward tracks, they finish it, and then they probably fall off a little bit. Yeah. So that's definitely a factor in why population might drop as well. But yeah, I do think that 2v2 does. It would require some significant changes to the game, I think. Otherwise, it wouldn't. It probably would be a little bit tricky because some weird things do happen in 2v2, like sometimes you have the double necro, sometimes you have triple necro. It can happen.
I think 3v3 would just be way better than 2v2.
To be honest. No, 3. I think 2s would be better. I mean, you could alternate as well. You don't have to. I mean, that's literally what they do. You don't have to
Yeah,
stick to
yeah,
2s or 3s. You just
yeah,
alternate them.
for sure.
But the thing
Yeah,
is,
well,
I think the important point is it is a game mode is that people are interested in. It's not like not to meme ArenaNet here, but Stronghold was essentially a failure, right? It doesn't. No one plays it. It's a
mhm,
non-game mode.
mhm.
But 2s and 3s are actually very relevant, and I think if they did make that push to force them a little bit, people would play them. The issue is, like you guys said, all the complaints you guys are basically voicing about 2v2s and 3v3s are balance related, because this game is balanced around conquest, and conquest, there are answers to things. If there's a necro that team fights really well, you can go daredevil and outroam them around the map, get kills, get +1s, make them useless, get value out of their lack of mobility. But in 2v2s and 3v3s, when it's specifically only getting kills, one, a lot of builds fall off. Every build that relies on mobility is just immediately out, just gone. And basically, only the team fight heavy specs remain, and the cheat, and then obviously there's the bunker and cheese strats that you could
Yeah,
do. And if those got addressed, and there were more rules in place, no class stacking, no spec stacking. I don't know if they can code that better
I
balance for
think
that game mode,
both
or fix it.
what you said and what Teapot said correlates to what lack of dynamics. And this is a fair point where if you just have the team fight build and the team fight build just overpowers everything else, and the team fight build kind of has the same tense of being a little more sustainy, one support, and you're just doing the same thing over and over, it can definitely get stale there, especially for people that are aiming to be a bit more competitive. Isn't that where potential maps and such can actually drastically improve the gameplay experience, similar to what you have in the side objectives in Conquest? Surely there are side objectives that can reward roaming far more, even in 3v3s, right?
Oh, I think you're
And
absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that
I,
map is
yeah,
something that's really underestimated in competitive play, right? Like maps can be a huge deal in making a game feel very different. I mean, even in the current setup, I would say that playing on Hall of the Mists, right, is very different to playing on Azura Arena, right? And that's only when we have like a very small roster of these kind of deathmatch arenas as well.
yeah, yeah, and again, those are arenas with nothing else than just deathmatch that you go 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 go. And Goers 2 lends itself to having like objectives, and they've improved it to that. And basically, I just think that from the perspective, and obviously I'm kind of saying this as a bystander who's, before I come back to this game to dominate it with the buffed chrono, I feel like you could continue the same wheel that we've been following for forever, right? Which is basically that we find good opportunities in the game. We have the Steam release. We have a lot of good things happening, and then I believe we've had a conversation about new player experience like 3 years ago, probably 3 years before that, and probably 3 years before that. And everyone agrees that while Conquest is amazing, and it's a fun mode and all that stuff, it is a legitimate, massive problem of how you integrate players into the game. And in general, if you're looking at more of a meta perspective of how gaming works globally, games are becoming more and more and more simple. People are expecting faster queue times. People want games that are quicker. And in general, like most mobile phone games and such, it's basically you queue into a game and it should take like 2 minutes. A lot of games where you have like an hour investment to do ranked and such, it's getting less and less popular. So from a business standpoint, I only see upsides from having like these smaller modes with more digestible content. And the top end of Goers 2 combat still lends itself to like become more complicated, especially with map dynamics. And like if I was to decide for ArenaNet, I would first, put back Portal and MOA to where they're supposed to be, and
Of course, yeah.
then I'd actually try to genuinely change the direction of the game mode. Now, whether that's what they have in line, maybe they're happy with where the game mode is. Like we don't see their numbers in the same way that they do. The people that are in PvP might be massive gem spenders, and then just having this committed audience might be very well worth it. You don't know, but Buff Mesmer.
You're already getting distortion. What more do you want?
No, that's already too much. Like there's a reason why I'm in jail.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. Yeah, it really is an interesting conversation. I think that sometimes it feels like, stuff like this is never going to happen. PvP feels very monolithic at this point. And, it can be easy to be very used to something and be averse to change. I admit it, I'm actually pretty biased here because all of my really good experiences in PvP have been Conquest, right? I've really enjoyed playing Conquest with, a few teams. Hell, I even played a few monthly ATs with Rom and Draza, right? It was hilarious. It was amazing, right?
Those were your only experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like you weren't forced to do anything else necessarily.
No. I was just gaming, right, doing some duo queue, right, playing with the gang, right, grinding ranked, all that kind of stuff. Like, I personally really enjoyed the Conquest game mode, but that on its own isn't to say that I wouldn't also like a version of 2v2 or 3v3 with better objectives, better map design, better balance around a deathmatch style game mode. It's not to say that it couldn't be good. It would be, it would just be a different experience. And, that could also be a lot of fun too, if the game was designed and structured in that way, right? I think that, just because something's always been the way it is, doesn't mean that it shouldn't change, particularly seeing as, as Helseth has mentioned, at the end of the day, gaming is changing, right? Like the way that players want to engage, it's much more quick fire stuff. Like very just like get in there, play, boom, done, move on, right? It's to me, it's very unusual that, a complaint I get a lot is that why is there no surrender in Guild Wars 2 Ranked? And to me, that's actually crazy. It's like, wait, what? It's a 15-minute game. I mean, it's not that bad, right? Like,
there is. Trust me. Yeah. It's called type GG next in team chat and then sit and spawn.
That's a classic. That does happen, obviously, a fair bit. Okay, but the way that players want to play definitely is even 15 minutes is a pretty meaty gaming experience, right? That's probably part of why players maybe find it difficult to get into more long form content like raids. I think it's why that some of the PvE content that ArenaNet makes, like fractals and strike missions, they're very quick fire, right? Like a fractal is boom, 10 minutes, done, right? A strike mission is like 5 minutes, boom, done, right? I think that's the dynamic that a lot of games are going right now. And yeah, in a way, Conquest is to an extent a bit antiquated. I guess a lot of MOBA games still go for a good chunk of time, I think. Stuff like League and Dota 2, for example. They're probably still relatively long in terms of the game length, I suppose. But yeah, it's an interesting option. I have to say, I wouldn't be, even though I'm a big Conquest enjoyer, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to testing it. Right. The problem is, though, and this is the really annoying thing, is that we say, oh, ArenaNet, just go ahead and test it. The issue, I think, is that the test would be like really high effort. You'd have to significantly change
you'd have to commit
the balance.
for it.
Yeah, you'd have to commit. That's the issue, right? Is that ArenaNet would have to say, okay, we want to test 2v2 in ranked for a while. Okay, well, that means you're going to have to do a pretty, you have to really, get CMC in the balance minds, right? To come up with something to, make it so that people don't quit when their profession is just a bit not good, right? And doesn't really work in that context. So it'll be it'll be a bit risky to do it, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to some kind of experiment.
Depends what your view of risk is, right? Like if you view the current state of PvP as a success, then it's a massive risk. If you're not happy where PvP is, then...
Hey,
hey,
do it anyway.
Burning. Yeah, man. Come on, let's throw some fuel at it. Come on, what's up?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, actually. It's a good perspective, because I think at the end of the day, I wouldn't imagine that a lot of players in the game, especially towards the more competitive end, consider the state of PvP to be a success in terms of, the game, right? How many people are playing it? Like, is the scene growing and so on? How invested people are. I don't think, look, maybe it sounds a little bit toxic to say this, but I doubt ArenaNet does as well, right? Like, if they go, oh, what are our crazy game modes that are doing super hot right now? It ain't PvP. Right, it's going to be open world PvE, and world versus world, as it turns out, is also very popular. It ain't going to be PvP. Maybe I'm totally insane, and the numbers are actually really good, and everyone's just dooming in the Heart of the Mists map chat, but I doubt it. Right, so yeah, maybe it's time just to go YOLO and just do a bunch of random stuff and see what happens,
boys. See what happens.
Let's go. Yeah, just have it.
I just think I don't remember who I was talking to this about, but it's a very interesting conversation, because it's coming from three people that genuinely like Conquest and genuinely like Guild Wars 2 for what it is and would rather see that perspective grow. But in a lot of fields they say I'm assuming this is fine to say for Twitch because it's a genuine term that you say, but you need to be okay with killing your baby. And basically, right now, when it comes from a developer standpoint, it's like they've done a lot for this game. They've done a lot to make Conquest good. They've made a fantastic infrastructure now. We had so many issues back in the days in terms of we didn't have ranked. If I wanted to play a good team back in the days, you youngsters are spoiled. If you want to play a good team, you can play them like that in a custom arena. Okay, they won't play you because you're too bad, but theoretically you could. I had to go into a weird Skype group meeting and sit in a call with strangers and basically go 3, 2, 1, queue, and we would all queue in the same time and get in different tournaments. Okay, like this.
Oh, no.
This is what we've been through. Now we have a fantastic infrastructure. We have a community that genuinely wants to make the game better. We have like if you look from the community perspective, what they're trying to do when there are tournaments popping up, like the donations, the excitement, like clearly there is a will. But despite the fact there's a will and there's an infrastructure, we're not growing. Rather, it's the opposite. Now, clearly, whatever it is, it's not working. Now, it could just be, and it's very well possible that this is all because I no longer stream viewers too actively, and the game is just burning because it needs me. That is very possible, and I'm glad that we all agree in this mentality. However, we cannot all just be reliant on me. I'm a Shaggy main now, so like we need change. We need change.
Well, we don't have to kill. I don't think Grouch or ArenaNet as a whole needs to take big risks. I think they just need to. Okay, so I think it's like I said, unranked conquest needs to go away. It splits the queue during the ranked season. It's horrible. There's no reason, right? I think that unranked needs to be a deathmatch, 2v2, 3v3 for people who maybe don't feel comfortable going into ranked yet. Conquest, they just learn to fight and eventually transition into that. I think you could build around both, and they actually have all the infrastructure for this. I don't know if you remember this, but they did run a 2v2 tourney with the Duo of Destiny title. This was a while ago, and it only happened once, and I think the promise was it would happen every 3 months, but it's never happened since, right? This has been like maybe 2 years ago or something. And that tourney was actually very hype, and because it was twos, there were a lot of teams. Like my team alone, Team USA, was split into 3 different teams, right? We had like 3 separate teams. Obviously, all the other teams also broke apart into separate teams, and that tourney was really hype. I'm pretty sure it had a lot of viewership too, and a lot of people played it, and the rewards were really decent. I think that's what 2v2 and 3v3 needs, an end game per se. So for example, if unranked is 2s and 3s, ranked is conquest. The ranked season ends, then it switches, right? So conquest becomes unranked and 2v2 becomes ranked like it is currently. And at the end of that, when the ranked season is about to start again, you have a 2v2/3v3 tourney to basically give people a reason to play ranked when it is 2v2 and 3v3, right? So the off season is 2 weeks? You play for 2 weeks, and if you know that there's a tourney at the end of it, then you will probably be more inclined to grab a friend, and you only need to find one, right? And just play for 2 weeks, then play the tourney. Tourney ends, hype over, then you go back into the ranked season. And I think if they did a cycle, I've been saying this for a while, if they had some kind of cycle like that, they would actually make people want to play more game modes. And what would help Conquest is the fact that you're killing unranked queue, because unranked is just it's a plague. It's horrible. There's no MMR. The matchmaking is horrible. People can literally 5-stack, and if you're solo queuing, you just don't have fun. So I think those changes would probably help a lot. I don't know what limitations would come their way if they tried to do it that way, but I think that would be probably the best idea. And I've thought about this a lot, and I've also played a lot of ranked games. I think it would be very hype for a lot of people if that happened.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the idea of bringing in a lot more tournament play, so the seasons and off seasons build up the stuff. I think that's fantastic, right? That's a great idea. And what's really good about this conversation, by the way, is that obviously this is work from ArenaNet, but we're not saying add this entirely new totally different interface system, right? A lot of this is again using the existing really solid structures within the game to just add a few more things here and there, shake things up a little bit, move things around. So the kind of the core structure of the game is relatively similar, more or less the same, but we're just using the systems to add a little bit more structure and make things exciting, because that's the important thing, right? Is making players feel like they have a goal, right? Something that is they're going for, right? I think that's important in PvP, in any game mode, right? If that's trying to get into plat or trying to get this amount of rating, right? And playing in the tournament, we're going to see if we can get to the top 8, right? Top 2, top 4, top 8, eventually try and win, right? That type of stuff is really, really cool, I think, and really important. But yeah, once again, we've saved PvP. There you go. You're welcome.
Easy clap.
Easy clap, indeed.
And bring Portal back. Bring Portal back for Helseth.
Bring Portal back.
He needs it.
Yeah.
Imagine having Portal in 2v2.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Listen, it can work. It can work.
Hey, you can just, you can outmaneuver the opponent, right? You could just teleport back and forth. They won't be able to keep track of you. They won't be able to keep up.
Use it in Hall of the Mist. It'll be great.
Nice.
So split your portal.
I mean, we've touched the abstract, but touching back to reality, we soon have a patch, imbalance patch. Conquest is a lot of fun. We all enjoy it. I believe everyone here is going to be streaming the new patch and looking at whatever builds we can do and all that stuff. And, there's a lot of excitement in the current system. I just feel like the current system has been done so well to this point, and I don't know where to improve it yet. I don't see the change that we all want to see. That's why we're looking at a little more, creative ideas. But I mean, in the end, until that happens, we still got distortion back. So that's bug.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think it will be a long process, because you mentioned earlier about how at the start of the game it was different, right? The energy was different, the atmosphere is different, and I think that's definitely true, right? Like, I think that for PvP you need to kind of have a bit of a spark, and then it builds over time, and players start to really care about the game. And look, this definitely is something that I do perceive as a problem. I think again, it's kind of like a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. My experience with a lot of kind of top players, not all of them, to be clear. I'm not going to throw everyone under the bus here. A lot of top players, they're a bit lukewarm about the game, right? It's like, I guess I'll play. Guess I'll play. There's not a lot of genuine excitement, and I think that it's really important to have players, especially the forward-facing players. The competitive teams, the teams you're going to be seeing in the monthlies, the teams you're going to see in the community-run tournaments, right? Like, I think those players being excited, those players being really engaged, it massively improves the atmosphere, right? But again, that kind of comes with the game itself changing a little bit. That comes with the game being fun to an extent, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, just grin and bear it. Just be more excited about the game. Come on, what are you doing? Like, come on, just get to it. We need to get some energy going here. So yeah, it's definitely an importance too, because yeah, atmosphere and I definitely feel this is true in competitive games actually. Because like another competitive game that I'm a really big fan of, and I follow the scene a lot, is StarCraft 2, and that game is arguably deader than Guild Wars 2 in terms of development, right? Because it's a legacy game now. It's not really going to get dev time, right? Like, things aren't going to change that much. I think there was like the maps were the same in ranked and tournament play for I think well over a year. Pretty intense. I guess that's similar in Guild Wars 2, but like, we get balance patches and stuff and expansions. But what really keeps that game exciting, keeps that game fresh, is that the excitement for all of the events and all of the players is really palpable, right? Like, everyone is super invested in the game and really excited about what's going to happen next. And, this is very much the icing on the cake, but I think Guild Wars 2 definitely misses out on that, right? It's very like, oh yeah, PvP. It needs to be a lot more of a stronger feeling about the game, I'd say.
Do you have any ideas of solutions to that? Because obviously, I completely agree. Not only that, I believe that the sense was different previously, and I believe that was one of the benefits of the esports times, which a lot of people made fun of more or less. But it didn't change the fact that PvPers really felt like they were working towards something, right? Like, they had a little long-term goals and all that stuff. Which started with like the minor tournaments, the ESLs, and then there were rumors about LAN events, and there was a lot of excitement from everyone on the top end. There were rivalries being built, and all sorts of stuff. And right now, we succeed in manufacturing some, with EU versus NA and all that stuff. but I feel like we're still missing the genuine spark. Now, how do you create that? Are you saying that it only comes to the game, or do you believe that there's something that players themselves can do to create this difference?
I think it's a bit of both. I think the game itself. I think that the players need to feel like the game mode has a future and the developers care about it to an extent. Although maybe not though, actually, because the example that really comes to mind here about this is obviously Smash, right? Because the Smash scene, honestly, like I feel like Nintendo doesn't like it. In fact, I know they don't like it, right? Yet that scene is extremely vibrant and community driven. Now, I think part of that is because, perhaps the game is perceived to be in a better state. Although I'm sure people are big mad about various balance issues in the top characters, right, or whatever. Sure, there's loads of Jigglypuff fans out there, who just absolutely love playing against that character. But broadly speaking, I imagine it's not too dissimilar from the way Guild Wars 2 is, I guess. So I think realistically there just has to be, the game has to consistently get better so that players feel like, oh yeah, there actually is a future. This is worth investing my time in. And then ultimately a lot of legwork from the community, because obviously like the events in Smash, yeah, a lot of the legwork is done by just very, very passionate fans, right? That have even developed into proper orgs at this point, right? It's very, very professional in the Smash scene. But yeah, I think stuff like that can be done in Guild Wars 2. I think the effort has to be targeted, and I'll actually call myself out here a little bit. I think that the type of events that I really like doing, I like Master of the Arena. I love seeing 55 versus Team USA, right? The best of the best. Ultranum in there. The French Worms, right? Dark USA Rising. All these really fun storylines, because I think something that's, you mentioned this here, right? Rivalries. I think storytelling and narrative is so important to the scene, right? Any competitive scene. You need to have the players known. But to be honest, I think that in some ways my efforts have been somewhat misplaced here. I think that the issue with Guild Wars 2 and with competitive play in Guild Wars 2 is that your average player doesn't really have something they can realistically win, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, let's imagine that I'm playing on NA, right? And I'm going to, we're going to take down Team USA. Realistically, to do that, this is what you'd have to do. You'd have to play every day with the same 5 people and absolutely full try-hard, like gameplay reviews, scrims, duels, practice, looking at strategy, talking about strategy, trying to theory craft this stuff and try and figure out how to play against them. It would probably take you, even with all of that effort, like with loads of hours every day, it would take you like 6 months. And you might not even win, right, in that amount of time. That is not a reasonable for a new player or a relatively new player getting into the competitive scene. That's not a reasonable amount of effort, right? That's just too much, right?
But there aren't gizmos for other game modes, so how come those are much more enjoyable for people to play? Is it just the casual player base, or what is it? Because the reality is, PvP, I do think that, I've mentioned this before, it's structurally complete. Outside of, us debating whether we want to add 2v2, 3v3 as unranked and flip them during off season, there's an end game reward that is, prestigious, that you can only get by, it basically says you're really good and it's value. Whereas in PvE, maybe outside of Doom CM and HTCM, and even then, the thing with Doom CM and HTCM is the rewards you get from those, even if you put, and some groups obviously put like a month plus prog to get it, the reward isn't really, there is no reward, right? And same thing with GVG or War v World. Maybe now I guess with the title, but even then, it's just a title, same as Community Conqueror, but without gizmos or something that's like that. But those game modes are still more played. And I want to be specific to GVG because I will say like PvP is more alive than GVG specifically, but it's less alive than War v World.
Because
so why is that?
Because in my opinion, with those game modes, there's a very clear path to success. And, I would say maybe not with GVG, because again, I think the high-end GVG guilds tend to be pretty far ahead, although I think it's a bit more mixed up there. But in PvP, the skill mountain I think, appears to be insurmountable, right? If I'm doing Doom CM or if I'm doing a raid, right? It's like, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z, and we need to survive for this long and the boss will die. We've got a clear path to success, right? This is how we're going to accomplish this. And yeah, it might take us a week. It might take us a month. But we'll probably get there in the end. And the same is true even of Harvest Temple Challenge Mode, like the really hard boss that has been released recently. But in PvP, I think winning and losing becomes way more obvious, right? Because you're playing against another player. So it's very much like you're first or you're last, right? I think competitive players will get into that mindset pretty quickly. But secondly, I think there's no necessary like clear path to victory. It's very abstract with how you'd go about actually accomplishing your goal here. How do you go about beating Team USA? Good question. How do you go about beating 55 or Worms? Good question. How can you do that? It's very, very difficult, I think, to kind of lay out your, okay, right, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? It's very, very difficult to do. So I think that's why PvP struggles a little bit more in this regard.
But who are we targeting with this struggle? Like, okay, so how many people are genuinely aiming? They're gonna start PvPing. They like PvP. They're getting excited about it. Unless they're me, how is there a natural inclination that they're gonna beat the best team in the world?
I'll be a bit more precise here. I think that it's really important that players have some kind of thing that they're trying to chase. And that can be ranked MMR, right? It could be, okay, I want to get to Plat. I want to get to 1700 rating. I want to get to Legend, or whatever.
Yep.
But I think that there also does need to be, I guess, kind of the comparative side as well. I think that, winning a daily automated tournament, I think is really cool. I think that's really exciting. I think the problem is that doing that is actually pretty damn hard because a lot of, they give really good gold and a lot of really good players play the daily automated tournaments, right? And that makes them very, very difficult to essentially win. So there is this slight separation, in my opinion, from like the main PvP blob of playing ranked, and then also the actual comparative side of it. I think, of course, as you play more ranked and you get better and better at the game, you'll probably eventually get picked up. Like if you have a high rating, people go, hey, do you want to go do AT? And you can play automated tournament. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy about this. I think that I think one of the things that I see in PvP that is problematic, especially when it comes to generating excitement and people not just, oh, I'm going to grind ranked. People just getting really excited and the energy in the game mode about the comparative spirit. I think a lot of that is linked into the fact that it is perceived that it's not really realistic to actually win, right? And I think if it isn't perceived as realistic, then people won't even try, right? Because it becomes to be, it's not really worth the effort to do it, right? Which is not necessarily a problem, I guess, but I think it does have some side effects with the growth of the competitive scene.
Yeah, specifically with the competitive, I can agree with that. I think a problem there as well, it's quite linked to this and might even go back to the 2v2, 3v3 game mode discussion, is that there really, how do I put it? There really isn't that many competitive modes in Guild Wars 2. That sounds weird because, you have your ranked, you have your 80s and all that stuff. But what I mean with this is if I want to be competitive, everyone that's good tells me that ranked doesn't matter. That's like the echoed statement. And if you're doing a daily and you just, okay, I'm doing the thing that matters now, and I get smashed, right? And that's where the end of it is. And I guess that is a problem where just how, but then we're going back to the problem yet again of the population, I guess, with the ranked mode just not being enough to, satiate the competitive drive. But I do wonder then if, because 3v3, 2v2, etc. I mean, if you're rank 1 in 3v3, then I guess that would matter, right? Because that's like, that's the only game mode, and it's not going to be that far removed from the 80s. I'm assuming. I mean, I could be wrong. And then again, there's always, I'll stick to that. 3v3 is the solution to everything. We're going back to that.
Yeah,
We're pedaling.
there we go.
We're backpedaling.
I think there are some things you could do. There are some things you could do with ranked, because I think that This feels so bad. But I actually think that titles being permanent is a bit of a problem. I also think that rating being hideable is a colossal issue.
I think titles should be removed completely.
Oh, wow.
From the game. Honestly,
What about
so as a response to what you said about having this clear goal, what if and this would kind of change the ranked reward structure to force to give people that thing you're looking for. It's like, okay, I have to do this. Maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes a month, but eventually I will get there in the end, right? So whether I'm plat, gold, silver. So basically, maybe not a battle pass per se, but a way to. Okay, so the issue with ranked right now, at least for me, and I've played literally 750 ranked games last season alone,
Nerd.
and one of the okay, we'll see when you get your Discord, but one of the biggest issues is that all the players that I want to play against or I want to run into, if they care, okay, so the moment a player cares about a title, they are no, you're never going to run into them. The title leaderboard system is horrible because one, and this is not even assuming that they're cheating. Basically the system forces them to play minimal amounts of games. So one game every 3 days for decay. Don't run into anyone who could risk your rating, because obviously since the population is low, if I'm playing on stream casually solo queuing and my ratings around like plat 2 and I run into these sweaters that are like legend, they're legend plus, the game is going to be heavily in my favor and I'm most likely going to win. And even if I beat them once and they win like 3-4 times, they're still going to be down rating. So it promotes this terrible type of play. And it's not only for high-end players, even players who are like, oh, I really just want to get into plat, then they're not going to spam queues as much. So what if the system was completely changed to basically, kind of like the PIP system, but maybe add exclusive rewards that, and I don't know if that would be an issue for other game modes, but it would essentially bring people from other game modes, because they are populated, to want to play ranked. Because if there is this exclusive reward in ranked that I can only get in this season, but I have 3 months to get it, and all I have to do is just play, I don't necessarily have to win. You get more people in and you make them want to play more. And obviously I feel like that would be an overtime thing that will these players will improve, because if you have to play for some kind of exclusive reward that you will get over time eventually, and you have a long period of time to get it, I think that could potentially help. And obviously you would keep MMR, right? Like you could keep a leaderboard with people's ratings, because that's how you match make, right? You need that rating to be able to get players matched up.
This might sound silly from the person that said that we're going to axe conquest, but I dislike suggesting ideas that kind of rework the system that's never going to be reworked.
Well, it's not reworking the system. It's more so just changing the incentive for players, because currently the incentive for PvP and ranked is very top heavy. If you care about God of PvP and you're new and you come in, you're like, okay, maybe like Teapot said, I could put in 6 months and try hard and I may still never get it. But if it's an exclusive item every season, which is one item every 3 months, for example, or something that people may want or care about, that requires them to just play more. If more people play more games, the matchmaker then has an easier job. Because I think a big misconception is people think the Guild Wars 2 matchmaking system is bad. They think that the matchmaker doesn't work. That's absolutely false. The matchmaker actually is perfectly fine. It just does not have the players at all times to matchmake, right? So at a certain point, 6 minutes, 8 minutes in queue, it's just like, all right, fuck it, I can't give you a game with people of your rating. Or if people are cheesing the matchmaker with silly strats, then eventually they just get a game against golds or silvers, and then it just gets really bad. So I feel like the reward structure change might help with that potentially.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that you're absolutely right about stuff being top heavy, right? I think that some other stuff you could do is it's kind of like do a similar thing with automated tournaments. I mean, they actually kind of have different colored titles. I think it would be pretty interesting if you could have like a gold best of the best for being first, and then a silver one for second, and then for third and fourth you had a bronze one. And I think you could do similar stuff in ranked, yeah, like having some stuff that you can kind of grind towards and get like a cool, you know, like a cool skin or something, right, for you know, playing through a season enough. I think I'm not sure if removing titles entirely, anyway, because in a lot of ways, right, the reward could be like a top 250 title, right, or a top 100 title or whatever we wanted to do. But I think you're absolutely right. The system as it stands right now, to be clear, combined with a low population, it's not even incentivize, actually. That's too much of a soft word. I think it basically forces you to abuse the system if you want to go for rank one, right?
Yep,
it's not even incentivize. If you want to get rank one, you need to do the 3 a.m. like meme queues or whatever, like full try hard, like abusing, queue dodging people, whatever, right? 119 games, etc. But yeah, go ahead.
I think it's worth mentioning as well is that this problem with people queuing at weird times and just having an absurd win ratio and all that stuff, this is a problem that exists in basically every game ever. Like the way you avoid it is, it's kind of not applicable to Guild Wars, but I'm just going to take an example. People are constantly complaining about Hearthstone. Top players there and how you qualify for events, because it's all also being like being at a certain rank at the leaderboard. So you have people dodging each other. You have people watching streams too. I don't want to play versus this person. Oh, this guy's playing. I'm gonna only queue versus him with this deck. And you know, people doing all sorts of things. And that game is insanely popular. You have the same issues in just about every single game. There is no real solution to some sweaty person doing that and getting rank one. Rank one in multiverses right now, a game which has a gazillion players. It's someone that's never playing. There's no DK, so he just randomly farmed up his rating versus bots, and now he's at the top. Like you're gonna have that in super popular game. You're gonna have it in less popular games. The problem is that it's what you guys said. It's the top end. The fact that rank one might be taken by some person doing a weird thing for one season, it is what it is. It can happen. It's unfortunate, but that's not gonna remove the person who's top 1000, because top 1000 rank 1 should be worlds apart in terms of skill, which means that top 1000 should be gunning to get to top 800, because then he reaches X. Like there should be incremental steps for each path of the way, because I think that we're putting a very strong emphasis of the rank 1 spot, because we've all been somewhat involved in dialogues and such when it comes to that, but the average player doesn't really care about the rank 1 title. They might care about it from the perspective where they see some nerd at the top end do some nerdy things and get top rank because of that, and they want to downplay the achievement of being good at the game, but it doesn't change the reality that that's not what's keeping that person from PvPing in the first place. The reason why this person is not PvPing in the first place is because I'm not streaming, and this is really what we have to tackle on.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're gonna have to get that fixed at some point, right? Like, that's in the next patch notes. We're gonna keep buffing Mesmer until it happens. But yeah, no, don't worry. Well, I'm on the case. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, though. Yeah, I guess the one thing that I think is definitely an issue, and it's something I don't really want to delve in too much actually into this TeaTime. But I think PvP does have an image issue, and I think that stuff being, you know, sus or weird or bizarre or abusive, right, you know, in high level ranked does actually lead to some perception problems. I think it generates apathy. If I was going to say one word for the community mood about PvP, it's apathy. It doesn't matter. It's all a meme, right? Like ranked is just, you know, people win trading and trolling and AFKing or whatever, right? All this kind of stuff. I do think that trying to tackle this is a worthy effort, even though I do agree. If someone wants to like do some abusive stuff, they're going to do it, right? It's impossible to truly get rid of this stuff. But I think it is actually worth trying to target the image of PvP a little bit in this regard, with the legitimacy of ranked, right, and the integrity of the game mode. I think that is really important, because I think that it does have a slightly depressive effect on players, even players who aren't ultra competitive. Because I think if you're a player getting into PvP, or, you know, you're a top 1000 player, top 250 player, and you look at the top scene and no one's taking it seriously, I think it becomes harder to take it seriously yourself, right? And again, if the community is looking at PvP and it looks like a total circus with people like honking their red noses and running around in clown wigs, then again, I think it delegitimizes the game mode and creates a really bad, kind of a bad smell, right, around PvP that prevents players from really taking it seriously and from respecting it as a game mode. So I do think it is worth looking at for sure. But I do agree that, yeah, ultimately you're not going to truly be able to cleanse it in this regard.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my perspective when I stopped caring about chess when I was a young spruce goose. I was like 16, 17, and I basically just randomly decided I'm done with chess, right? And I remember something I told basically all my friends, and something that I was stuck in my head for forever, where it was like, I mean, chess isn't even good once you get good at it, because at the top level, people aren't even good. All they do is memorize. They have computer moves that they memorize the openings, they memorize the end game, so it's no longer about thinking. It's just people have memorized it. And I remember a lot of people like, yeah, all they do is memorize, man, they're not even good and all that stuff. And that was from the perspective of someone that had no goddamn clue what they're talking about. And I feel like if I want to have the perspective of top PvPers being, what do I should say, immoral, lame, abusers, this, cheaters, whatever, if I want to have that perspective, I can get that perspective. Now, if I want to have the perspective of actually knowing what's going on, like knowing most top players, like Frey, who AFKs every single time someone's DCing or whatever, and like there's so many examples of the opposite, but that's never going to get highlighted because people get what they're looking for. And I believe that you can show as many beautiful perspectives of viewers to PvP. The fact that you guys set up a tournament together and you're like even involving charity events and people are like doing really good gameplay in the tournaments, people showing up on time, not nagging with the admins, like all this stuff, and people like just celebrating PvP. If people still have a negative view, that's because they want to have a negative view. And we can't really focus on that beyond the fact that we can just continue to be as good as we possibly can. And my main recommendation to everyone is to basically just follow the example of, I guess, you, TeaPot, where, I mean, you've been involved in drama before, I assume, right? I don't really pay attention to that as much, but you've been involved in drama. But the people that decide that you're a bad person, if they're such people, they've decided it no matter what, right? But you could just continue to be an example for the new people that see you. There's been so many people that have an image of me because I'm me. But when they actually, get to play with me or get to see me and all that stuff, all of a sudden their views of me, I mean, more or less they're probably confirmed, but sometimes they're not. And I think that in general, like people, I just suggest that more people stream, more people do content. I believe I said this last time. I think it's a travesty that people aren't streaming their perspective in monthlies. I think that in general can do so much for the game. That people are streaming their ranked experience. That's like the highlight of ranked, in my opinion. People streaming ATs, people streaming monthlies, and in my opinion, even tournaments. Like the more eyes you could get on the gameplay, you can implement delay and all that stuff. I think this would really start creating more of a positive effect, similar to what you can see in Smash and all that stuff. Because I think it's fair to say that Gears 2 has the capabilities of having strong personalities carry the game. The reason why I believe that is because we have you here, and we have the tournaments you've set up here, where if we remove you, well, what would we have? We would have Naru's sad tournament with one player, and it would be him. So clearly, there is evidence that individuals can make a great impact on this game. And I still believe that, even to this day, that we could have more people that are in a similar position like you are. They would just have to genuinely care about it. And I believe that alone can make PvP way more legitimate. I just think it's a challenge with all of the things that are set up right now, which is why I think like somewhat of a reset with like a more focus on new game mode, where new eyes are starting anew and everyone wants to like show this new game mode and things could. So I would see a lot of practicality in it. But despite that, I would say the next monthly or daily you're going to play Naru, you're going to stream it. You're going to stream with webcam. You're going to stream it with feed cam. And this is how
you should have seen my monthly finals POV yesterday. It was glorious.
All right, that was that. Yeah. Okay, Naru, good job streaming that anyway. You're doing the right point, but you didn't have webcam, and I believe that's where it all struggles. So next time you're gonna have webcam, and it's gonna be even better.
No, but I agree with you. I think personalities are definitely important. But the problem is, someone said this. I think you need like Teapot said this earlier, he said that I like big hype storyline tourneys, but they don't really help the scene, which maybe in ranked and starting out they don't because you want new players to get in. But I think the answer to that isn't that you need to just do everything. I think we just need more Teapots. Pretty much, you just need more people who are invested that can basically do what Teapot does at maybe at a lower level, intermediate level, and then a high level. Because expecting like the Smash community, they had a lot of people invest in the scene for it to build up to what it was. You can't. Whereas with PvP, you have one person who is doing everything. It's I think it's a little too much. Even
I'm
if
going to
you have a
stop you
team
and say
behind
that you are doing a massive thing. Boys is doing a massive thing. Everyone that's streaming consistently, people putting up YouTube videos and all
Absolutely,
that stuff,
yeah.
all those people are doing a massive thing. Those two. So yes, you might not have the same impact right now as Teapot, but if it wasn't for you, Boys, and all these people, there wouldn't even be personalities for him to attach to, and then he wouldn't be here in the first place. So it's a constant effect. So don't sell yourself short, Naru. You may be a very mediocre player, but you're an excellent content creator.
I appreciate it, but thank you.
Anything for you.
We can't all be like you, but
I know.
we try,
It's
we try.
tragic. It's tragic. Maybe one day.
Wow, goodness me.
Wholesome.
Yeah, very wholesome. Yeah, I don't really have much of a follow-up to that, but yeah, no, I definitely think that a lot of it has to, a big part of it needs to be community-driven, and a fresh start would be good, right? Because then you have that motivation to do it, right? There's like, oh, something's changing, right? Like change and things getting shapen up. That is where you do have the potential to kind of capture the attention of more people. And all I say is I'm working on it, I guess. Well, I'm not working on shaking the game up. I can't do that, but I've got a few ideas.
CMC's already done that.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Exactly.
Big balance.
CMC's got it under control. Okay, the balance patch is going to keep things fresh. That's for sure. But yeah, it's true. It is. It's yeah. I mean, the key with kind of repairing, I guess, the image, the integrity of PvP is exactly what Helseth is describing here, right? Like it's the community needs to be creating positive experiences. The community needs to be setting a positive example, and then all of the drama stuff, it just fizzles away into irrelevance, right? At that point, it just
that's because it is irrelevant.
Yeah,
like,
right,
the drama
course, yeah.
is irrelevant, really.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the reason why when something dramatic happens or some crazy stuff is going on, right, or whatever, or oh yeah, something happened 3 years ago, right? Like the reason why it seems to be all encompassing and very pervasive, a lot of the time it's because there's just not that much else going on, right? That's a simple fact, right? Like if there was more stuff happening and more excitement, more events, more community engagement, then sure. Like, it just fizzles over. There's drama in every scene, right? You guys think that, like the Smash scene or the League of Legends scene or Hearthstone, they've got no drama there? Goodness me. It's probably worse in a lot of ways.
Way worse.
Yeah. I mean, look.
You seen the Twitch drama lately?
Yeah, the Twitch drama. Yeah, you
content.
seen that going on there? Like, this is like a huge community, right? Like some of the biggest streamers on the platform. We've got a complete shit show going on, right? There's always going to be drama. But the key is to shape the narrative around the game mode and define it with positive events and positive stuff along, so it makes the negative stuff kind of be put into perspective, right? And mean a lot less, of course. But yeah, there you go. That honestly feels like a pretty good place to actually wrap things up, I think. What an awesome show. Thank you so much, guys, for hopping on. I really, really appreciate it. Insightful as always. Are there any kind of topics that we want to maybe bring up here to kind of wrap things up before we close out the show here? Any kind of final thoughts?
Well,
yeah, hit me.
One quick thing.
Yep.
Please give us Shroud 5 animation on Spectre back. Thank you.
There you go. That's one for CMC. Is he here actually? Let's find out. CMC's not here. Unlucky. So it's not going to happen. Yeah, unfortunate. But yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts, Helseth, on the situation?
I'll just go ahead and give myself a shout out. Twitch TV, the Lord Helseth. Usually I would say from the context you guys already know. Now, because I'm a small-time multiversus gamer, you guys might know me. With that said, on patch day, you guys will get to see how Mesmer's played. That's beautiful. I hope you guys will relish in that experience. And I'm always very keen to help in whatever I can. This is a beautiful community. I've been part of it for the better part of my adult life, which means that I'll always have some form of attachment. So, just go ahead and I look forward to seeing the patch day, and hopefully we'll get some good content together. And shout out to Naru. Give him a follow. He needs it. It's a small time streamer. So I mean,
Yep, there you go. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Yes. Well. Yeah.
need
That's,
all the follows and subs I can get. Go go go.
okay. Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you want
no,
to kind of give yourself a bit of a shout out there as well to follow that
Yeah,
up there?
you
Follow
can,
that through Naru.
Yeah, I stream on Twitch, pretty much all I do, and I play a lot of ranked. So if you're interested in PvP, you have questions, I will try my best to answer them. But yeah, I play a lot of classes, just meme and shitpost.
There
That's
it
pretty
is.
much it.
We'd love to see it. Links are, of course, in the chat. Will be
Not
below
Helseth
the stream as
content,
well.
but we try.
Yeah, we're putting in the effort. We're working towards that. But yeah, go check those links out there. They're in the chat. They are in the description of the video as well. And of course, if you enjoyed this tea time, definitely let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, follow, subscribe, like the video, share it everywhere. I think a really interesting discussion, actually. I'm incredibly excited to hear what everyone has to say about this one. So definitely let us know. Join the discussion. Join my Discord and talk about stuff there as well. Follow my stream. Watch all my streams. Come back every single day, right? You know the drill at this point. But yeah, and be sure to check out my fantastic hosts here, Helseth and Naru. We really appreciate you hopping on here. Thank you so much, gamers, for joining me today. It was an excellent show, a really, really good one. Yeah, that wraps things up for this tea time. Take it easy, my friends. Thanks for watching. And yeah, we'll see you next time, I guess. We're out. Goodbye, everyone.